Wait, are you saying you don't think that anything should be funded?
No, no separate bills. I think you have to squeeze government on a bipartisan basis like a teenage pimple. Keep squeezing it until they get back to Washington.
Sarah Sadner stepped in for Abby Phillip on CNN's Abby Phillip Show and led a panel discussion that brought together MAGA figures Kevin O'Leary and Mike Lawler to talk about the current government shutdown. The panel also featured Teslin Figaro, Chuck Rocha, and Miles Taylor. In this breakdown, we'll review some key moments from their intense exchange with Sarah Sadner, O'Leary, Lawler, and the others. I'll also give my perspective on what unfolded during the debate. So let's jump straight into it.
Just 48 hours from now, funding for food stamps, otherwise known as SNAP assistance, will expire, leaving more than 42 million Americans who rely on them potentially hungry. This, of course, another consequence of the shutdown, but now a federal judge says she may force the White House to tap into emergency funds to pay for SNAP benefits in November. Right now, that fund has a little more than $5 billion in it, but nearly $9 billion is needed to cover next month's benefits. The administration says that money is not meant for what it says was, quote, regular benefits, but instead for emergencies like disaster relief. The judge disagrees. She said in a hearing today, if you don't have money, you tighten your belt. You're not going to make everyone drop dead because it's a political game someplace. 3 Democratic governors and 23 attorneys general filed a lawsuit over it. I spoke to one today, Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell.
The USDA has the full authority to continue this funding. It is a policy choice. It's a choice they're choosing not to help 42 million Americans across this country, which is shameful to say the least. And I'm hopeful and confident that our lawsuit hopefully will change that. And just a reminder to your listeners, as a Democratic Attorney General, we do this work regardless of whatever letters by your name or your political affiliation. This is about helping people, delivering for real Americans who are suffering.
Now, Republican Senator Josh Hawley introduced a bill last week that would keep SNAP benefits funded throughout the shutdown. It was getting bipartisan support, including from the White House, but Senate Majority Leader John Thune sent senators home for the weekend, so any chance of saving SNAP benefits would have to happen after the funding expires on Saturday. All right, to our panel. I'll start with you, Representative Lawler. Thank you for being here. Never in the history of this country has SNAP benefits, or what used to be known as food stamps, been ended for a while, even during shutdowns. Why is it okay now?
Well, look, I don't think this situation is okay at all. And it's precisely why I voted over a month ago to fully fund SNAP, to fully fund WIC, to make sure our troops are paid, to make sure our Border Patrol agents are paid, to make sure that our air traffic controllers are paid, and all of our federal employees. We passed a clean continuing resolution through the House over a month ago. Under Joe Biden, every single Democrat voted 13 times to fund our government and keep it open. Chuck Schumer, the senator from my home state of New York, said repeatedly, shutting down the government is a disaster, that you don't use the American people as hostage in a political game. But that is precisely what Senate Democrats have done over the last month. We're 30 days into a shutdown that didn't need to be. And so, yes, I support making sure that SNAP and WIC are funded. It's why I passed the Clean CR through the House over a month ago. This could end today, respectfully. This could end today if Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, the 2 senators from New York, would say, very simply, it's time. Let's pass the Clean CR. Call John Thune, get everybody there, pass the Clean CR, and avoid any government shutdown whatsoever.
With all due respect, Congressman, today in the U.S. Senate, Ben Ray Lujan, a Democrat, brought a bill up saying we could pay the WIC today. We could get that open and get it done. There was no vote on that. This thing needs to end because 22 million Americans' health care is going to get doubled. I got my ACA notification yesterday. There's 2 numbers I noticed on it. One was what I was paying, and number 2 is what I'm going to be paying. Now, everybody knows my story. I didn't go to college. I grew up in a small town in East Texas. Every American will be looking at that, just like they'll be looking to see if they're going to have some food stamps to make sure their families can get paid.
About 39% of SNAP recipients are children. 20%, I went and looked these stats up, are elderly. 10% were non-elderly individuals that had disabilities. That makes up the bulk of the people that receive these benefits. So why can't everyone just agree to do the right thing?
Well, obviously, it is a political game. Respectfully to saying, this could be passed right now, it's certainly not being done. And I just want to speak for those who are really being affected. We say the numbers, Sarah, 22 million, but I want to speak on behalf of Clifford Johnson in LA, who is disabled. He is paralyzed. And you know what he does for a living? Drive Uber with sticks. So this is somebody who does everything that they possibly can with no legs to still work, to still contribute to society, who's getting screwed on the Medicaid side and also now being screwed on the food stamp side. So no matter what he does, this particular administration that is in charge now is screwing him either way. There is this stereotype that those who are on SNAP and those who are on these benefits are people who are lazy, people who are not contributing. So that $100 and $150 that he gets every month may not make a difference to those who are sitting at the tables in Congress, but it absolutely makes a difference to him. So what would you say to him, to the Republicans who are holding Medicaid hostage for food stamps? Should he now say, well, now I can't get my diabetes, all of the complications with being paralyzed, or starve? What would you say to him? What should his choice be?
Well, Republicans are not holding Medicaid hostage, number one. Number two, we protected Medicaid for those who are disabled to make sure that they are not losing benefits to those that are here illegally, taking benefits away from the very people who rely on this program.
We've seen this playbook before. It's the same old Republican strategy. Mike Lawler and others are quick to claim that immigrants are to blame for everything. Their argument always seems to be that Americans could have all the benefits they deserve if only immigrants weren't taking them away. But that's simply not true. Immigrants don't receive Medicaid, no matter how often Republicans repeat that lie. This false claim has been around since the Reagan years. In reality, if someone goes to the emergency room and can't afford to pay, Medicare reimburses the hospital, not the patient, and certainly not any undocumented person. So, the idea that immigrants are getting free government health care is completely misleading. With this government shutdown, the Trump administration is achieving exactly what it wants. Their real goal has always been to dismantle the Affordable Care Act and eliminate the subsidies that help working Americans. The Heritage Foundation, which strongly influences Trump's policies, has long pushed to remove both the ACA and its benefits. And if Republicans could, they would also strip away Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, programs they've already tried to weaken. So, when they go on Abby Phillips' show and insist immigrants are the problem, remember this: even if immigrants weren't here, Republicans would still be cutting these essential programs because they have no alternative plan to make healthcare better for the American people.
Number two, again, we passed, Republicans in the House, passed a clean CR to fund SNAP, to fund WIC over a month ago. Democrats in the Senate have voted 14 times to keep the government shut down, to not fund WIC, to not fund SNAP. So this is not a function of Republicans playing politics. I don't care who the president is or what party is in power. I have voted every single time to keep the government funded and open. During Joe Biden's presidency, I voted 8 times to keep the government funded. Kevin McCarthy lost his job as Speaker of the House in large measure because he put a clean CR on the floor. It's time for Chuck Schumer to do the right thing, stop playing politics, stop kowtowing to Bernie Sanders and AOC and Zohran Mamdani, and vote to pass a clean CR as he did every time until this year. Every time in his career for 50 years.
Can I just say this, though? The President of the United States is the President of the United States. And at this point, as an American, I don't really care who's responsible. And I think a lot of Americans are feeling that way. They're like, the bickering game is happening. There's polls about, are Democrats more responsible? I don't care anymore. There's kids who are going to starve.
Agree.
The president should get up and say, everyone come over to my house and let's have a conversation. I worked with him in the last shutdown, the 35-day shutdown from 2018 to 2019, in the administration to try to get him to end it. And I will tell you very candidly what that was like. Days just got burned where the president didn't care. He wasn't thinking about it. He was thinking about other things. We said, Mr. President, the troops aren't going to get paid. Mr. President, people might not be able to feed their kids. Mr. President, essential government services are going to shut down. And guess what? He did not care, because to him, this was a video game. But this is not a video game. Tomorrow night, there are families who are going to go out on American streets and they're going to trick or treat from the start of trick or treat until the very end. Do you know why? Because that might be the food they can afford to feed their kids for the next few days. That rocks me to hear anecdotes like that. And I'm not blaming you for it, Congressman. I'm just saying I would hope my fellow conservatives call on the president to say, you know what, Mr. President, Who cares who's to blame? Bring them all to the House. Let's cut a deal. Let's reopen the government. Let's feed kids.
Even during the historic 35-day shutdown, SNAP was funded. And this is the first time that it hasn't been. The average household receives about $332 per month if they're using SNAP.
I'm not a fan of solving for one problem over another. A bill like Ted Cruz has to keep air traffic controllers going. This is all bad. The people vote their representation, and the government's supposed to do the work of the people. I say none of this stuff should go forward, so the pressure gets worse and worse and worse, whether it's SNAP, which is horrific, whether you can't travel. We're a very transit-based society in America. You can see it today. I flew into New York, delays like crazy, and it's just, these guys stopped getting paid tonight.
Wait, are you saying you don't think that anything should be funded?
No separate bills. I think you have to squeeze government on a bipartisan basis like a teenage pimple. Keep squeezing it until they get back to Washington and they solve the problem. Everybody's got an agenda item here. You've got this issue around health care. Other people have issues around SNAP. You've got the traffic controllers, air traffic controllers. Everybody's got an issue. And the reason they have an issue is the government of America is closed. So don't solve one vertical. Don't do anything until everybody is so pissed off. Because I'll tell you, next week, when people, the one that kills you every time is to get to an airport and there's a 5-hour lineup. That's the one that always gets government back to work. So Cruz is right to bring that bill, but I don't want it passed. I want those people pissed, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, saying to the representation, hey, bozos, get back to Washington.
Let's remember one thing. Kevin O'Leary isn't even American. He's Canadian. Yet every few weeks, he appears on Abby Phillips' show to comment on issues he clearly doesn't have deep insight into. Miles Taylor, however, made an excellent observation when he pointed out that Donald Trump simply doesn't care. As I mentioned earlier, Trump is following the playbook of the Heritage Foundation, which believes government should mainly exist to fund the military, police, and agencies like ICE. While they constantly claim there's no money for programs that help ordinary citizens, like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, or the Affordable Care Act, they always seem to have endless resources for ICE and defense spending. They proudly brag about a $1 trillion defense budget, even as they complain about the national debt and insist on cutting social programs that millions rely on. As Miles Taylor noted, Trump couldn't care less if service members get their paychecks or if families lose food assistance. His only goal is to make Democrats look bad. This is the same man who made a name for himself by refusing to pay workers and contractors. So it's hard to believe he suddenly cares about public servants or struggling families. None of these issues affect Trump, his inner circle, or most members of Congress. And certainly not Kevin O'Leary, who doesn't even live under U.S. policies. So, what's your take on all this? Do you agree with the MAGA voices like O'Leary and Mike Lawler on Abby Phillips' show? Or do you side with the rest of the panel and Sarah Seidner's point of view? Who do you think is truly at fault for this shutdown? And who should be responsible for getting the government running again? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.